exploring every nook and cranny of the keep and the bailey outside, where we find the battle of the keep is on repeat. This is probably the only quest in this game that actually made me think a little bit. I refused to use guides for any quest in Oblivion that I wasn't convinced wasn't bugged out, so it took me a few minutes to get it all figured out. Eventually I realized that I had to prevent the defending ghosts from fleeing the battlefield, which meant tracking down key items that were important to their morale or their combat effectiveness. The elf archer didn't have her arrows because the blacksmith was a dick who kept them locked up during the battle, so we brushed off our thieving skills and swiped them from the armory and returned them to her. Another defender was really concerned about the beloved doll, so we swipe it and burn it in one of the braziers lying around and makes him focus on the battle. I don't really know how doing that's supposed to help the guy, but okay then. Then we have the mage who runs out of magicka and needs a source of more.
Yesterday, when I was farming this guy, I literally killed him 50 times in a row before he dropped
Or we can give
his
him a
thing.
dagger that sucks all the magicka from whoever he slashes. $10 to whoever guesses correctly which one I accidentally gave him.
I don't know if I
With the
believe
three
you.
now committed to the replaying battle, the Count finally gives us a scoop on what's going on. He admits that the falling of the keep was partially his fault as he fled the field, and the whole reason of the curse was because they were plotting against Sheogorath a long time ago. In helping them finally defeat the attackers, the Count is convinced that we can break this curse. Thanks for the tip, Flanley. I mean, he would have given this to us if we hadn't insulted him at the gates, but whatever. To make up for his cowardice, he gives us his helmet to go into battle wearing, and in doing so we'll clear him of his crime of cowardice. So we put it on and head out to the courtyard where we slay a ghost and free everyone from the curse. The Count thanks us, letting us keep the helmet as our reward, and that's the end
You
of
sound
it.
like that guy that I banned from my
Pretty easy
server
for
before you
heavy
joined it.
users, but the real treat is the quest itself. We do not expect to get roped into a quest that sets up some puzzles and gives us few hints and no quest markers. It's not crazy challenging or anything, but damn if it's not a fresh of breath air in a game that really holds our hand way too firm most of the time. Oddly enough, I find the keep much creepier once the ghosts are all gone. Even though I now know the true story of it just helped with the curse on it, and save the place, the lack of NPCs in the rainy foggy swamp really makes the keep feel even more haunted without all the transparent NPCs around. It's probably time to put dementia aside for a while and get a look at it. Over on the other side of New Trails, we are meant to get a taste of Mania, and Théoden, the Duke of Mania, means to take that quite literally. He wants us to find the Chalice of Reversal,
What'd he do?
which he says helps me
One,
find
he was
Feld's
super
blood,
annoying, but
because
two,
if
he
Feld's without the
in the
Chalice,
self-advertising
like,
channel
really bad.
put
Feldu helps open the mind for creative
fake
thoughts, so he
completions
wants a
of
chalice so he can go back
what
to
was it?
using it. Unfortunately,
Acheron
he
and
Syl had
Sakupin
fallen out
Circles.
after they had a passionate and potentially quite scandalous fling, and that resulted in the chalice being hidden away. Before he gets to tell us the rest of the details, he says he's got a headache and he needs to go lie down. Don't worry, I know what that's like all too well. The appropriately named Wide-Eye in Théoden's court is able to give us just a few more details, but doesn't want to tell us too much because, as she puts it, Théoden wants us to experience something and she doesn't want to spoil that surprise. Whatever it is, it's going to be unpleasant to some extent, and this just delights Wide-Eye. These people are starting to sound like Dementeds right about now. She does tell us the chalice is in Dunroot Burrow, and the Elytra's Feldu, which we must consume in order to get in, is all part of that learning experience. So, it's off to go eat some green shit dropped by giant bugs in the middle of the woods, and wouldn't you know it, Feldu is incredibly addictive. We are hooked after just the first bite, and the only way to reverse the effects is with the chalice, which now makes sense why Théoden wants it so badly. So, being hooked on the Feldu, we got no choice now but to continue on through the root system, slaying Elytra for our Feldu fix. The dungeon experience itself would be a little bland if it wasn't for this little twist, but because the game mechanics now have us acting like desperate addicts, this quest winds up being one of the more memorable ones in the game. Even with our stupid high luck skill, the Feldu only drops just enough to make it to our next dose, leading me to think that this quest is just scripted this way. If we can't get enough Feldu, we go into withdrawal and start suffering some unpleasant stat debuffs. And considering these Elytra are pretty aggressive enemies, those stat debuffs can be pretty deadly. After carving a path through the cave system, we eventually come to the Sanctum of Decadence, where cult of Feldu addicts live in perpetual bliss consuming their tons of Feldu and using the Chalice of Reversal to stem off the negative effects. Naturally, they don't approve of us crashing their party and wanting to be off with their Chalice, so they attack us, but they're not really much of a match for us, and really nothing compared to the Elytra we've been fighting up until this point. We grab the Chalice and it's off back to Théoden. Théoden is a great contrast to the demented Syl. While Syl ruled with fear and subterfuge, Théoden rules from people loving and needing him, though not in the good way, more like the obsessive and creepy sort of way. While Syl was very, very concerned about what everyone else was doing and thinking, or not doing and not thinking, Théoden is completely aloof to everyone and everything else. He seems to just like his drugs and his art, and even we seem to hold his interest for a little more than a few fleeting moments. These two have more going on for them than even the biggest names we met back in Cyrodiil, and our time spent interacting with them was probably only about 5 minutes collectively. Unfortunately, there just aren't many quests related to the manic side of the realm. Most of them are just quick 5-minute conversations with crazy NPCs that yield little reward aside from the dialogue. One is noteworthy not because the NPCs are crazy, but because they are all sane. In the settlement of Hale lives a former knight from Cyrodiil who came to the Shivering Isles believing a serious threat lay inside when the portal opened in the Niben Bay. After exploring a while and being ambushed by some Grummites, he came across Hale and met his now fiancée Zoe. He explains how he no longer has any desire to return to the chaos of Cyrodiil as he's found some inner peace in the Isles, and of course met his love. It's strange that a realm of madness would offer a former knight a place to find himself and live in peace, but that's what he tells me. His fiancée Zoe is just as keen-minded as he is, and enjoys passing their time together. I really can't blame either of them for not wanting to leave this place. They have a really nice life together here. You know, assuming the Grey March doesn't exterminate them, but no place is perfect, I suppose. I'm not really sure what to make of this settlement of sane people in the Isles. Perhaps it's meant to just show that not everyone living in the realm has to be crazy. But also, how did the knight manage to get past the gatekeeper? Certain things are just left unanswered here, and it does the world no favors by introducing plot holes. It's a tiny side quest though, and a rather dull dungeon dive to retrieve his medallion from the Grummites that ambushed him. Definitely the sort of quest that I'd grown used to in Cyrodiil, and proving that Bethesda didn't quite make this expansion flawless. Oh well, moving on. A lot of the side quests in the Shivering Isles are more like scavenger hunts more than anything else. One resident in Bliss wants us to collect tongs and calipers, both are abundant junk items, and will pay us some gold for each pair we bring. Another quest has us looking for odd and unique items to fill a museum in Crucible. These items are things like pieces of amber ore shaped like Sheogorath, a ring that will strip the wearer of everything they have equipped, and the pelvis bone of the Emperor Pelagius the Man. Another just has us collecting 2 types of ores unique to the Isles and weapon and armor molds, then bringing them to a couple of smiths to get unique weapons and armor made with the materials. There's really not a whole lot to be said about any of these quests, but I do appreciate how they encourage me to do some.
I didn't really anticipate how long this farm would take when I started it.
Because you never really knew where these things might be.
It's like
The base game
2 to 3 minutes for a 5% drop chance. I knew about the drop chance. I didn't know it took this long to get here though.
We are finally ready to hear what Sheogorath has planned for us. We are simply meant to replace him on the throne when Jyggalag comes to destroy the realm, because every time he comes, Sheogorath has to disappear, leaving the realm completely undefended. Will we become a Daedric prince? Not exactly, but we will wield a considerable amount of power, enough to stop Jyggalag, hopefully. It's simple, really, so long as we don't ask too many questions just yet. But first we gotta put the people of New Shealth's minds at ease. The flame of Agnon burns above the temple in the city as a beacon of hope and a sign of Sheogorath's divine power. Every time the Grey March begins, the torch goes out. This tends to make the people nervous and they begin defecting to the side of order. Sheogorath wants to prevent that as much as possible, and the easiest first step is to keep that torch lit. In order to do that, we need to travel to the source of the flame, Silarn, the oldest site of ruins in the Isles, and rumored to be the original capital of the realm. It also happens to be the site where the Dark Seducers and Saints are locked in perpetual combat, always competing for control of the place in an attempt to become Sheogorath's favorite creations. Sheogorath doesn't really give a damn about their struggle for his attention, but he does care about that flame, so it's off to Silarn so we can keep him from getting upset and swallowing our soul. Upon arrival, we find 2 forces locked in a stalemate, with both sides occupying a key part of the ruins. In order to get the flame in the courtyard lit, we need to choose to help one side in order to tip the scales in that side's favor and uproot the
I was considering streaming GD because I would get like 5 to 10 times the viewers, but I do not want to play GD, so. It's almost like I'm a GD channel or something.
And making it back to the Sasalam of Arden Sul and New Shealth. Our picking sides doesn't end at Silarn, as there are 2 torches we can.
Well, really, it's a watch time farm. Between those 2 level request streams, I got like 80 hours of watch time. Also, it's really good for subs. I got like 50 subscribers.
We get awarded a set of enchanted clothes befitting a friend of the Demented, and it's quest complete. It's It's a relatively short quest, but it's pretty cool getting some more insight into the two sides of the realm, and the Daedric forces that defend it, all the while getting to make some actual decisions that, while not affecting the world a whole lot, still makes more of an impact and is more interaction than we got with anything during the main quest in the base game. But on to the next task. Sheogorath insists we need to hold some legitimate.
I mean, they were like
power
8 and
if we're
6
going
hour
to be
streams, but
accepted as the
still.
new Sheogorath. To that end, we need to replace either the Duke of Mania or the Duchess of Dementia, which kind of sucks for them.
One
but
second, my
whatever,
cat
it
is in here and should not
This
be.
isn't going to be as simple as it might seem, as there's rules and rituals that dictate these things, and our first order of business is learning them. Upon inquiring with the priest at the temple, we learned that in order to become the next Duke of Mania, we must have the current Duke consume large amounts of a drug known as Green Mote until his heart explodes. And then we take his drug-tainted blood to the altar in the temple. In order to replace the current Duchess of Dementia, we must carve out Syl's heart and bring it to the altar in the temple. Either way, it's a real rough deal for the current ruler. In keeping with the spirit of things thus far, I'm opting to replace the Duchess of Dementia, also because I've never actually done this one before. We head on over to the Court of Dementia, where the throne is empty. Upon asking her aides, we learn Syl is now in hiding as she fears she has lost the favor of the Mad God, whom she now thinks wishes her replaced. Once again, Broken Clock Syl is right, but this time there will be no way for her to torture her way out of this conspiracy. Her aides agree to flip to our side, and we press deeper into the palace, only to find her body on the bed already.
Alright, well,
Her aide insists,
my
though,
cat's
that
in my
this is
lap
the
now, so
body
say
that
hi.
She likes to deploy in order to throw off would-be assassins, and that she must have slipped down the secret escape tunnels in the courtyard to her underground fortress
being very
designed to
distracting.
ambush the ambusher. The next dungeon crawling segment is ceaseless ambushes mixed with dodging traps like these damage-dealing statues, an appropriate place for the rule of the Demented to have access to. Her guards are understandably on high alert, and it takes quite a bit of time and battling to finally make it to Syl, who is now armed and armored and ready for a fight to the death. Unfortunately for her, she's up against someone who has more titles than any king or emperor back in Mundus. And her seat of power is merely another title we the player will possess on our road to having the grandest title yet. It really sucks to be Syl, but I was surprised she even had a heart to take. Doubt she will really be missed all that much.
True.
Back at the temple, we burn her heart to be awarded the Duke of Dementia, only to learn that there is in fact a single person in this realm who would actually miss that crazy sadistic lady. Her former lover and Duke of Mania, Théoden, confronts Sheogorath over the sanctioned assassination and replacement of his beloved Syl, all performed by a mortal outsider no less. Théoden, possessing more backbone than I thought possible from the little wood elf junkie, defies the Mad God and abandons his post, outright stating he's gonna go work for Jiggalag because what Sheogorath is doing is too crazy even for him. Sheogorath lets the former Duke go, and tells us not to pay the falling out too much mind. This is just to be expected in times such as this, and seeing as
Okay,
this has
I'm
never
gonna
actually happened before, it's
make him
likely
leave
his
now.
plan is actually working. Théoden informed us that the Order had taken the Fringe, and this is the thing Sheogorath wants us to worry about next. We need to head off their advance there if we want to stop
didn't
them
seem to
from
mind
moving to
leaving.
the rest of the Isles and sweeping through it.
Mutual
it's back to
decision.
the Fringe where we came through a little while earlier as the
I
naive,
guess.
wide-eyed adventurer. And well, you should know at this point how much I enjoy these returning.
I usually
to
keep my
the
door closed.
The Fringe is looking a lot worse for wear these days, though.
So
as
they don't
Order
tend to
has
get to
stripped
be in here?
almost all signs of life in the region, aside from the few seducers left fighting for their lives in the abandoned site of Passwell. After fighting off a few waves of knights, we learned the tower that had been just another enigmatic fixture of the town for years is actually acting as some sort of portal for these invaders. We need to gain access to it through the ancient ruins of Zetaphin, which are now accessible thanks to the deforestation efforts of the Side of Order, whom apparently just hate anything colorful and lively. So that's where we head to next, fighting more knights along the way. In the ruins, it's another bog-standard dungeon run that have just become too commonplace in this game to really present anything worth discussing. At the end, though, we have the boss fight around a giant obelisk, and upon deactivating it, the dungeon experience gets flipped on its head when the ruins begin to collapse and it turns into a mad dash to escape being crushed from all the falling rocks and pillars. It's very easy to get hit in rapid succession by these rolling boulders that can eat a ton of health even if they just tap your toe at half a mile an hour. So spamming health spells as we try to find our way out of an ever-shifting maze of
So what are you
corridors
doing?
becomes the new name of the game. Despite it feeling a little cheesy, it's a fun segment that has the designers using things we've seen a few times in the game to make a unique experience. We escape to the surface of a now devastated Fringe, but at least all the knights are dead, and the forces of Order have been foiled for the time being anyway. It's time to head back to Sheogorath and report yet another victory. His investment in us is clearly starting to pay off. With the Fringe cleared for now, it's
Okay.
time to secure it permanently by bringing in
Sounds
a new
super fun.
gatekeeper. I really do love this quest, even if it involves the longest and most.
So what? Do you just like listen to random streams or YouTube videos while you play GD? Because I used to do that a lot.
Where Relmina works tirelessly to perfect her understanding of her proposed fifth element, flesh. Sheogorath also seems to have a bit of a thing for the crazy powerful mage, possibly because of her power, or possibly because of her sadistic insanity. She may be a big fan of the Mad God, but we probably top her shit list for having killed what she quite seriously thinks of as her child.
Well, I'm making a
She's
little.
delighted to make a new gatekeeper, but it's a
Have
very
you
process to make such an indestructible beast.
Did you get 2.1 working?
Necessary to construct them in the Gardens of Flesh and Bones, and that's going to be our next destination. Before that, though, it's worth taking a look around her lab, which can best be described as a torture prison befitting some sort of Second World War crime against humanity. She insists everyone sent in here as a volunteer, but I doubt that.
Didn't bother. You have Mega Hack, right?
Life experiments and get access to some of her research notes, and they help paint her as a sadistic, if not brilliant, magician. And I gotta give credit to Testing here for taking the time to design these plays with all these staff. It really does wonders to elevate Relmina's character and addresses that point I made back in the Mages Guild video, where I complained how we never really saw any reason to believe anyone in the Mages Guild actually possessed.
That's unfortunate. I was gonna say I was gonna tell you to play the hardest challenge that I've made and beaten, but it's a 360 FPS challenge. I don't know if GDHM has physics bypass, but yeah, you can't really play it on 2.2. I doubt it works, but if it does work, it's easier. So
it's off to the Gardens of Flesh and Bone, only this time you aren't getting something to kill a gatekeeper, but collecting the 4 essences needed to construct a new beast. Most of it is just following quest markers through lengthy dungeon corridors. Although the segment for retrieving the Essence of Breath has us following a green mist through a maze of roots to its source, which is a little neat. Back at the lab, Relmina, who doesn't seem to be warming up to us in the slightest, instructs us to go pick the part she has.
What's the ID? It's called Keep Yourself Safe. Go to the last page because it has a bunch of dislikes. Also, go dislike it.
Some of these parts will imbue the gatekeeper with certain stat bonuses or resistances, and of course make him look different. It doesn't really matter, truth be told. Once he's set loose, we really won't see him again, and his combat effectiveness is completely irrelevant. So feel free to pick what will make him look cool and start making your way to the fringe. Before the Gates of Madness, on the site of where we slew the previous gatekeeper, Relmina has prepared a witch's cistern of sorts for her new creation. In probably the most visually striking sequence in the entire game, you get to help her bring this beast to life.
First, place the gatekeeper's body into the cistern of substantiation.
I really doubt it works on 240.
At the beginning of the worlds were 5. Fire, water, earth, air, and light. Darkness turned into day. The void took form. Hidden away by virtue of its own self-awareness was the 6th, containing within it the 5, which birthed it. Flesh! Meat! With the desire to consume like fire. Place the dermis membrane into the cistern. Blood, liquid nutrient, that ocean which casts pearls of light upon the shores of existence. Place the blood liquor into the cistern of substantiation. Bone, branch, stone of the body, giving shape and structure. Place the osseous melon into the cistern. Breath, child of air, bestowing movement, the stirring of spirits. Place the essence of breath into the cistern of substantiation. And last, the light of breath, the illumination of soul, perception.
Keep yourself safe.
I summon thee, water and flesh, flesh of true flesh, from those waters of oblivion which sire thy kind. Come to this altar, join with this body, quintessence of flesh, join with the essence of flesh, absolute being immortal, immortal, bound, contingent. Fear not thy abasement. Thou shalt be the holy in this temple. I bind thee, Atronach, to this
I wasn't
body.
talking to you.
Henceforth,
That's literally what the level is called.
My child, it is time to fulfill your destiny. Stand guard in this land against all those who seek entry not bearing the mark of Sheogorath's favor. You shall know them by the coldness of their nods, the darkness of spirit.
And just just like that, we got ourselves a new gatekeeper. As an added treat, we get to watch the new gatekeeper wreck shop as a group of knights come foolishly to attack him.
Yep.
At the palace, we learn Jiggalag is getting more desperate.
Yeah, it's macro buff.
Subterfuge to sabotage the forces of the realm. And it's here Sheogorath drops the biggest surprise on us yet.
Well, aren't you precious? Do you really not know? Haven't you noodled it all through yet? Because he is me! Well, I'm him! We're a bit of each other, really. I won't be here when he arrives because I'll be him! Happens every time.
Yeah, looking at it, it looks like 2 clicks, right? But it's actually, it's 3 inputs because the release into the second click is also a 360 frame perfect.
That we will have to start hunting for the answers to. And I just love plots that do this. Plots that have the player asking questions and hunting down answers are really the best plot. It gets the player truly engaged in the story and the world and the characters. And at this point, I should just keep replaying a soundbite of me saying how this wasn't something we saw in the main game, because I've just run out of unique ways of saying that. Now, it's off to Belrock, the home of the Saints.
I can probably send you a 2.1 later.
It's pretty much a linear dungeon crawl, except we get some allies and environmental puzzles to
I think it
a little bit different.
probably
Like
fits
with all the other
within
dungeon crawls, there just
this
isn't
for its
much to
file
say.
size limit.
We learn how the Saints and Seducers are reborn, and that's really what Belrock is intended function is. It's the place where the Saints are reborn at when they are slain after their spirits float through.
How many times have I done? Oh, I haven't clicked this in a bit.
Apparently a very scary place, even for the
Oh, I kind of
Saints.
have.
So Sheogorath created Belrock, the Seducer counterpart Pinnacle Rock, to act as a beacon for his creations.
Yeah, I've missed a couple. Let's go with 10. It's been like 10ish.
Order attempts to stop up the wellspring where the Saints are reborn, temporarily incapacitating our allies by severing their links to this realm. But with a little persistence and a lot of powerful spells, the threat is squashed and the day is saved once more. It would seem that Théoden played a hand in this, which is no surprise since Jiggalag is not known for coming up with original plans on his own. Back at the palace, things have taken a very unfortunate turn. Immediately we know something is off.
It's like 2 minutes per itself, bro. I have 264 total. Again-ish.
Looking around his throne room as though he doesn't even recognize it anymore. This is something that I noticed with the expansion. Bethesda tried to use more animations outside of conversations to better detail the mental states of their NPCs. It's usually pretty silly and uncanny thanks to the terrible animations their 2006 engine restricted them to. But here with Sheogorath, the subtle change in his idling animations does nail the trick quite well, I gotta admit. I felt more in the 10 seconds walking up to the throne and sensing something was seriously off than I did during the entire main quest of this game. That's just effective use of proper storytelling, build up and lessons.
I thought we had more time. I thought we had a chance. Our plan has failed and we were so close.
Yeah, there's a drop.
Optimism.
Oh, that's a really good one.
I love it. Even at the end, you
This is the best one I've seen yet.
I'm lying. That wasn't funny at all. No matter. Soon you and everyone else will be dead, and I will be left a mad god, ruler of a dead realm again. What happens is what always has happened, what always will happen. I crumble, I fade, the realm dies, and you with it. Flee while
Yeah, it actually got pretty decent accuracy on it. I mean, decent in quotes. It's fucking 18. But with the amount of bullets that it puts out, like... Here. Let me just click. Funny gun.
A useless twig. The staff, there was hope. Now, hope is dead. I am dead.
I really do love this last conversation with Sheogorath. It's a great send-off for the best character this game ever had. It really leaves me wondering if Sheogorath is just an identity like the Grey Fox, or if Sheogorath is a real person. Do different beings that earn the title of Mad God eventually transform into Sheogorath?
You know what?
If so, do they have continuity in memory? Maybe that's the source of the madness.
Good job.
Those personalities of different
What's the highest damage on it?
Because we aren't the first to become Sheogorath, according to lore. I wonder these things because, damn, I feel kind of bad if the last thing he will ever experience was the dread that he had failed to save his realm again. Fortunately, we still got Haskell, and while things look
yeah,
good,
never mind. I'll keep
he still has a
farming.
plan and sees this more
It
as
could
a
be better than
temporary
this.
setback and not total
Like
defeat.
significantly.
He believes that while we can't become a Daedric prince, we only merely need to sit on the throne of madness and wield the staff to possess enough power to stop the Grey March. And while the staff of Sheogorath is dead like the Mad God himself, we can't take it. The only problem is that this will require us to seek out the only source of knowledge left in the realm that would be able to provide...
So stats for a perfect one. They're actually on my thumbnail.
And seek the great library of Jiggalag, which had been sealed off by Sheogorath long ago. There's no telling what the library of the ending might have in store for us, but it truly is a quest.
The item card in the thumbnail is a perfect one. If I do that to Car, because it gives me my kill skills, which make me go faster.
Use the key Haskell gave us to get through a locked door, only to find a man sitting in an empty chamber. It turns out there is no library. Sheogorath had the library burned eons ago.
I should probably I should be doing that every time now that I think about it.
The library contained the great formula deduced by Jiggalag, who is really the Daedric prince of not only order but also logic. That logic and that formula allowed him to predict any and all events carried out by all beings, mortal and immortal, for all of time. And that knowledge was recorded in his great library. So we can see why that would irk his chaotic counterpart and why he would have it destroyed. But Sheogorath couldn't bring himself to destroy all of that knowledge forever. So he had Dias, who was the immortal keeper of the library, who also lacks no real sense of individuality, locked away for all eternity instead. We are the first living thing he has seen in a very long time, though that doesn't seem to interest him one way or another. He knows why we've come, as this has already been deduced a long time ago. He knows how to make the staff, and he tells us exactly what we must collect so we can construct the staff. He expects us to fail, but once again, that doesn't really interest him one way or another. He does admit it would
So
be
I should use the
interesting if
fire
we
for
did
that.
succeed, because we'd be the first mortal ever to have our own dedicated
Okay.
Daedric artifact. So maybe that's why he ends up dumping us. Though he doesn't believe in free will, so I guess he doesn't really have a choice in this matter. Regardless, it's time to do some
It kind of takes a while to turn around though. I think it's probably
the
faster to just
dungeon calls are
go
beginning to
straight.
wear off. As interesting and unique as each dungeon, they are still just stints of combat meant to pad out the experience and pace out the story some, and this quest begins to show that a little bit too much.
Go beat
It's still much more enjoyable
Gayer
than
Balls
dungeon
by me.
experiences in Cyrodiil, but it does start to feel like it's being dragged out. Our first item to fetch is the Eye of a Zealot Leader Mage in some ruins. This involves fighting past her minions and slaying her, which is simple enough. The second item we need is the branch from one of the main trees in the grove deep in the heart of the Isles. The grove is said to show men who they really are, and only after we see the truth will it give us its branch. The truth just means fighting a shadow version of ourselves, which is an identical copy of ourselves but turned dark and shadowy. Of all the boss fights I've had to fight in this game, this was the most difficult, and what an ego boost that turns out to be. It's great fun fighting
Basically the same
every
thing,
floor,
just
every
by a
corner
different person.
possessed. But too bad the limited AI still makes it a very uneven fight. With the items collected, it's back to Dias to get our
It's almost over though.
He's quite surprised by our success and very casually mentions that there must be an error in his calculation. You know, the calculation that had successfully predicted every action and every outcome of every action for all of recorded history thus far. You know, no big deal. He gives us our unpowered staff and tells us to soak it in the font of madness back at the palace. So we return with our big stick, looking to soak it in the fountain behind the throne, but when we get there, we see it isn't working, and white shards of order are surrounding the fountain. Haskell admits we having a problem with this. The forces of order must have found a way to taint the waters of madness themselves, which is fed by the great tree deep beneath the surface of the Isles where the madness of the residents of the realm resides. This is the true source of madness for the realm, and if the forces of order manage to find a way to clog that up, then Jiggalag has pretty much already won. He suspects Théoden once again, because this is just far too imaginative for the Daedric Prince himself. If that's the case, then the only solution is to head down into the fountainhead and find the source of the taint and eliminate it. Ordinarily, it's a peaceful place down there where the tame gnarls tend to the roots of the great trees. But with Order down there, who knows what might be going on. The gnarls themselves might be helping to spread that taint. So, it's time for our final dungeon dive, and unfortunately, it's the most uninspired of them all. We get to conjure up some friendly gnarls to open some doors for us, but other than that, there's little going on down here except fighting the same monsters we've been fighting since the beginning. And
Can you do more
occasionally
GD
boss
streams?
fight
Yeah, I
between
will
a few
later. I
enemies.
don't feel like playing GD right
The
now.
priest slowly lets us cleanse the place of the taint as we move through the dungeon. The way too long dungeon crawl comes to an end with a boss fight with some priests and Thaden around a large obelisk in the Mortis of Madness. Or at least it's meant to be a boss fight, but High Sneak and High Marksman kinda ends the fight before they ever even had a chance to defend themselves. We head back up with
Later
some
today,
fat
though.
and finally get to soak our staff, gaining the power
Like,
of Sheogor.
you know,
And not a
whenever.
moment too soon as one of our guard commanders comes running up alerting us to the latest development. Order is finally assaulting the palace as obelisks around the palace grounds are being attacked and Jiggalag are now storming. It's time for the final battle. and to put a stop
I do
to
not
the
have anywhere
cycle
near
of
enough energy
it's here
required
that
for a
the power of
GD
the staff
stream.
of Sheogorath comes in super fucking handy as it allows us to freeze everyone, friend and foe alike, for 15 seconds in an area. This gives us all the time in the world to overload the obelisks with parts of Order to stop the knights from spawning. Eventually, Jiggalag gets sick of our shit and comes down to the battle himself. And well, let's just say our shadow put up a bigger fight.
I am beaten. The Grey March is ended. For the legend, this drama has unfolded, and each time I have conquered this land.
Fuck.
Only to be transformed back into that gibbering fool, Sheogorath. It was not always so. Once I ruled the realm of Ulfheim. My foolish life across the seas with each passing emperor. The other princes were of my power.
I mean, it is a Geometry Dash channel.
A broken soul reigning in an open land. Once each era, I was allowed my true form, conquering this world anew. And each time I did, the curse was removed, letting me to exist. King, God, it seems uncertain. This realm is yours. Perhaps you will grow to your station. Fare thee well, Sheogorath, Prince of Madness.
With us breaking the cycle, the curse has finally been lifted, and with it, we are now
There are like,
and Jiggalag is
besides a
truly
Dance with
the
Fire and
true
Ice, which
form
there
of
are a
this
few
world.
of,
He ponders what we
but I think they're
truly
mostly
are now,
unlisted.
thanking us regardless,
There's
and
like
that's
2 or
really
3
it.
videos
Back
on this
inside the
channel that
palace, we
aren't
see Hasbro
Geometry
has already
Dash.
assembled our new court and welcomes us officially as Sheogor, Prince of the Shivering Isles. We learn what all this means and what benefits and responsibility we now possess. And, well, this is the greatest failing of this questline. There just isn't much we get. We can go to the court and use some of the services there. We can ask one of the guards to accompany us, as if combat in this game wasn't easy enough already, and that's pretty much it. We get to keep the staff, and we can change the weather of the realm, which nets us different buffs, but really that's it. As for our responsibilities, it's just unending quests that presumably send us to go kill some monsters that can just as easily be ignored, not really making them obligations at all. This is absolutely one of those cases of it's the journey and not the destination, as the rewards for becoming what's basically the closest thing a mortal can get to becoming a god in this universe are really just underwhelming. That's another reason I like to make this one of the last things I do. It seems fitting for any of my characters and important crowned as the god of madness. Rewards don't really matter if I'm done playing, and I get the feeling Bethesda understood that this was going to be the way a lot of players went through this expansion, especially since it came out way past the original game's launch. But this is all starting to sound like a conclusion, which calls for another chapter transition first. Ah, that's better. There's something truly poetic about the player becoming the Lord of Madness. But we seem to act like agents of madness already, so to have that officially recognized is pretty nice. By this point, we've basically been elevated to something close to an emperor as the champions of Cyrodiil. We've become the Grand Champion of the Arena, the Archmage of the Mages Guild, the Guildmaster of the Fighters Guild, the Grey Fox, the Listener of the Dark Brotherhood, and the favored champion of every Daedric prince. So why not ascend to godhood? The Shivering Isles experience is very enjoyable from start to finish. It's perhaps the most consistent questline in the whole game. It starts to drag just a bit near the end, but by then the momentum of the story carries us to the end, and it left me wanting more. No other quest chain had me wanting it to continue. They all either dragged out way too long, or ended at the perfect point for me to have my fill. The Shivering Isles all in all adds about another 20 hours of content, and very little feels like uninspired filler like a lot of the content of the base game. The dungeons all feel like there was a great deal more thought to them. The quests usually have interesting engaging characters. Most activities yield appropriate rewards. Exploring the Isles is just as enjoyable as Cyrodiil. It's a worthy expansion that improves upon almost every aspect of the base game. And that's not to say my time in Cyrodiil is bad. I still love the base game, but the Shivering Isles definitely upstages it in some regards. It's much narrower in scope, sure, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Really, though, the areas of improvement that shine the most are in regards to setting and story. The Isles are
yeah, I have like a 60% boost to fire damage.
Most of Cyrodiil, filled with thought-out
And I have the best fire gun in the game, and my character is specifically good at elemental damage.
And a ton of new lore to explain the world and provide ample content.
And I do corrosive first because it makes them take more damage after.
And a whole expansion that is about mystery and discovery. The story itself centralizes all of this to create an actually engaging story that has us actually interacting with the world, learning why it is the way it is, and making us care about the fate of it. It gives us an actual stake in this realm and a meaningful role to play within it. Maybe ending up becoming something of a god is a bit over the top, but seeing as we can become the head of every single major faction in the base game, what difference does it really make? At least we knew this was coming early on in the story. Our journey through the story is just
I'm doing this build instead of the one I was doing for Bonehead because this guy does not have a crit spot.
No questline had us.
If he did, the double anarchy would be better.
It was always just handed to us like some meaningless trinket, and it pretty much always felt like that was the case too following the completion of those questlines. In terms of gameplay design, the Shivering Isles didn't go about reinventing the systems, but instead just found new ways of recontextualizing those systems to create a more engaging experience. We got to fight alongside allies more frequently to make us feel like we were, in fact, in charge and wielding some legitimate power. Enemies were given more diverse means of offense and defense, necessitating more creative approaches towards combat. Dungeons frequently had different objectives, or played with enemy placement and behaviors so that we were at least going through each dungeon slightly differently. They still use dungeons to make up for the ever-problematic question of how do we make something any player can enjoy, but they at least tried to make those dungeon experiences not so monotonous. All in all, this expansion was something that, while I didn't think Oblivion absolutely needed to correct all the faults of the base game, definitely benefits from having.
Yeah, that SMG I was using to kill Bonehead does
experience, and I just cannot recommend it enough. I really wish developers put this much effort into DLC these days.
233 damage times 4, so it shoots out 4 bullets per shot at like I think like 14 shots per second or something. So when you factor in crits, there's not really a way to there's very little ways to do higher damage than that. Oh yeah, and then also I have the class mod that boosts it by fucking 60%.
When DLC was still a very new concept, the range and scope and quality is just staggering. Most of these
and that damage is before buffs that I get from
while some of them like Horse Armor and Spell Tome should have just been added in a patch or bundled in with one of the other DLCs. I'm going to ignore those though because this isn't a video about touring the houses of Oblivion. So that leaves 4 plugins that add quest content. The Shivering Isles, the Knights of the Nine, the Hunt for Mehrunes Racer, and Repairing the Orrery. The Shivering Isles we covered, so let's knock out the remaining 3 and call it quits. To eliminate the low-hanging fruit first, the Orrery is the most bog-standard fetch and delivery quest imaginable. We learn of the quest the moment we step into the sewers after the Emperor is assassinated all the way in the beginning of the game. Then it's just a matter of making the Repairing the Orrery quest our active quest, following the quest markers to the remote bandit camps in the wilderness, killing the
Yeah, the Hellfire is good, but damage-wise, it's hard to beat non-unique weapons in this game.
We give her a couple of days to do the repairs, and then we got a functioning orrery that lets us receive certain greater powers based on
the legendaries just aren't like
that's entirely
super overpowered.
Razor adds a single dungeon in the Volus Mountains on the border of Morrowind and Cyrodiil. The story of the thing goes like this. Some crazy Dunmer warlord is building an army to try and invade Cyrodiil, and is also hunting for the dagger. The dungeon is quite unique and fun to explore, and the mercenaries inside are loaded up on some of the finest gear, level scaling loot tables.
Like they are, your average legendary is probably better than your average, like, blue purple gun. But in terms of like perfect rolls, it's hard to beat it on you, like a purple non-unique. So, well, especially for SMGs, not so much for like revolvers. Although kinda, my best revolver is a non-unique. Well, my best masher is.
What can I really say about this expansion? Because that's what Bethesda said it was, an expansion. I don't really know what it expanded, as all it really seemed to add was a couple of broken dungeons and a set of divine armor whose stats are anything but divine. And I say the dungeons are broken because the chests inside them aren't level scaled, at least in my game. So, looting chests was pointless because I was using a level 1 loot table when I was almost level 30 by the time I was doing this. The enemies are scaled, but not the rewards, so have fun grinding through long maze-like dungeons that we've seen a trillion times and getting no worthwhile rewards. Your best bet is running through them or sneaking through them. Forget fighting, it just doesn't enhance the experience any. Our quest starts in Anvil, where the chapel has been desecrated by some unknown forces. The prophet raving outside the chapel seems to think this is the work of Umaril the Unfettered, and is
fuck, sorry.
Knowing who that even is.
I haven't decided.
He's almost unimpressed by our collection of titles when he asks us why we believe we are worthy to follow the path.
Yeah, I'll get some in a second. I don't have any on hand.
Eventually, he capitulates after we tell him we are the listener of the Black Hand.
There are a few things I could do.
Shits out a whole long-winded story full of really uninspired theological buzzwords.
What I probably will do though is
we are then sent on a
another hybrid.
To redeem ourselves of our sins, because at this point we got quite a few in needing of repenting.
Probably the Rainer Rister, because it's a pretty fast farm.
Even more meaningless proper nouns before we get sent on some lame fetch quests. A couple of them involve us solving some mini-game like puzzles in the middle of undead-infested ruins because, you know, we just needed more of them. Each fetch quest is meant to embody the principles of the respective deity. Kinnereth has us respecting nature by not killing a bear in a grove. Stendar has us redeeming the descendant of a man who killed a beggar in the God of Mercy's chapel, and you get the picture. It's cool getting introduced to the gods in a more tangible way than anything else in the base game, especially since we got to know the Daedric princes pretty well from their shrines. But even the best of these quests are only good because they are short and simple. Most of them are just shitty dungeon crawls to get a reward that isn't even worth equipping for most players. All of this is to assemble every Crusader relic so we can go and kill Umaril. Except I forgot to bring most of these items with us to Umaril's hideout, so
water obtained.
Conventional way.
It's like cold right now though, so I'm gonna give it a bit because I don't like drinking like cold water. Especially after coughing, it makes me fucking cough more.
To the Sky Realm, where Umaril's spirit needs to be killed to vanquish him forever. Once again, he falls even faster without any of the divine weapons or armor. So, the entire quest chain involved fetching items we didn't even need. Awesome. In the end, we redeemed the corrupted Knights of the Nine, rebuilding it and restocking it with generic NPCs who just got their positions because they approached and asked to join, and we said yes.
Okay, I actually have
they are surprised and
dinner happening.
Because we were dead when they found us.
So, what I'm gonna do?
Stirring speech, and I'll just let the events of this epilogue do the talk.
I could just end stream and then start it back up. It's kind of lame, but I think I'm gonna do that. Let's see how many drops I got. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 16 total. It's 2 drops. Right? No, it's 1 drop. Is that only 1 drop, really? Oh. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I've been getting pretty unlucky. I was super lucky before, so it's kind of fair. Actually, that was about normal luck. Yeah, normal luck for this guy is like waiting an hour in between drops almost. So yeah, the next term I do is going to not be like that. Yeah, getting like a good chopper is hard, which is why I want one. Also because I like the gun, I think it's funny. So yeah, I'll be back in like 10 minutes. Wait 1 second, let me make the description correct before I end stream. Yeah, it's day 3, it's not day 2. Yeah, it's a 5% drop. Okay, bye.